Right then, welcome back to another gameplay video. This one is for Knights of the Round on the SNES. It's not the SNES, it's the SNES, and that's with a Z, not a Z, but really it's an S. Oh, it's confusing. Anyway, joking aside, this is a really good game for the Super Nintendo. I think we can all agree on calling it a Super Nintendo. Now, this came out in the arcades in 1991, but didn't get a home release until 1994. Now, to my knowledge, this was released on PAL, NTSC American, and an NTSC-J, I think, isn't it? The Japanese equivalent. However, with that said, I had a look on Wikipedia earlier on, because let's face it, that's the bastion of knowledge, it's always correct. And not, of course. And it didn't list a PAL version as being available, but I'm sure it is. I'm sure I've seen it on eBay and various pictures of it, unless it's a fake copy going around, I don't know. I'm pretty certain it was available in PAL regions. But anyway, I've got the American version for obvious reasons. And it's just essentially a 2D beat-em-up. Classic old school Capcom game, in a similar vein, if you like, to Final Fight. Now, if you go back around about, what was it, about 10 seconds ago, you would have seen the player selection screen. And right at the start, you're given the choice of 3 characters. There's Arthur, who's the main protagonist, and he's the one who you're probably going to be more often than not, because he's the one that everyone's familiar with. But there's also Lancelot, who later, of course, became Sir Lancelot, and there's Percival. Now, Arthur is probably the more balanced of all the characters. He comes armed with his Excalibur sword, and he's, yeah, like I say, he's a bit of an all-rounder, really. And on the top of the fact that he's King Arthur, so he's probably going to be the obvious choice. Now, the second character, like I say, Sir Lancelot, he comes armed with a sabre, kind of like a bendy sword, if you like. Bendy sword makes it sound like one of them fake kind of rubber hammer swords that people use, like a toy or something. Not much of a threat, that one, you know, it'd be rubbish. But yeah, he uses the sabre, and he's probably the fastest character in the game, whereas the other character, the last one, is Percival. He is armed with an axe, essentially, wields an axe, and he's probably the strongest physically in the game, but in terms of his speed, definitely lacking. So yeah, I mean, ultimately it just comes down, I guess, to how you want to play the game. You know, do you want someone who's going to be fast and agile, or do you want someone who's going to have more of an attribute towards strength? It really comes down to your kind of personal choice. I'd probably, I guess, go with the default, which is Arthur. Probably because he's got the best weapon in the game. You know, as far as I'm concerned, Excalibur. Just a massive sword, and you can't go wrong with a massive sword. That just, the more I was saying that, the more it sounded like some kind of euphemism. But you know what I mean. Now, what you get at the end of every level, as you're seeing here, is an end-of-level boss. Now, this particular guy is called Scorn. It's just the usual thing. They get the energy bar, hit the energy bar down, and defeat them. Occasionally, as you saw there, you know, some merchant will pitch up and try and distract you like a henchman or another enemy soldier. But yeah, knock them all down, which makes it sound really simple, doesn't it? But yeah, once you've done that, you simply progress. Now, in a minute, it's going to come to the Stage 1 clear section, and it'll also touch upon levelling up. Now, the levelling up works in a similar kind of way to an RPG. Definitely RPG elements. Basically, the more points you rack up during a level, the more food you pick up, the more gold and what the treasure, I guess, that you pick up. The more points you get, the higher you rank. Now, when you do rank, each character has something slightly different that will happen. I don't think you notice anything here. Let me just have a look. No, I didn't really seem to do anything there, did it? So maybe the gap from level 1 to level 2 is negligible, to say the least. But basically, as they rank up, the higher they rank, the changes happen. I mean, they're quite subtle, as you can see, to begin with, to the point of not happening. But when you get to level 3, level 4, you notice little things, such as Excalibur. He gets more body armour. Literally, you can see it on the character as you're playing, and it becomes more silver and gold, and you can really tell the difference. The Lancelot character, what does he have? I think his sword, his sabre, gets broader, it gets bigger. And does he? It's something to do with his uniform again. Maybe it's like more of a metal plating or something. And the last character, Percival, well, I guess he gets the rough end of the stick, really, because he ages. He loses a bit of hair, but he gains a beard. So evens itself out a little bit. So, and I think he gets heavier armour as well, which is usually, from what I've seen so far, down one side. One side is kind of protected with the armour, the other isn't. I guess perhaps as you rank up further to level 7 or 8, or however far you can get, then maybe he becomes fully armoured, I'm not certain. Oh, there we go. Good timing. Here's Percival. Well timed. So yeah, as you can see, the armour on one side, wielding his axe, and as it progresses, like I say, you get more armour. As I smash that barricade down there, and whack a bad falcon. What a great enemy, a bad falcon. Now, the control system is very basic, but it's very effective, just as all these kind of side-scrolling 2D beat-em-ups were. You ultimately get your hack and slash button, your hit button, you get a jump button, you get a block button, and you get a special power, and that's it. But I mean, with that said, you know, this is just an old-school 16-bit classic game. You don't need anything too complex. Ultimately, you just need the buttons which you've got. Jump, a block, you know, a hit button, and a special move. That's all you get in this game, and that really is all you need. Why overcomplicate it? You know, with using the shoulder buttons to do things which you don't need. So yeah, I think it's got everything it needs, quite frankly. It's very simplistic, but that's the beauty, isn't it, of old games? Whereas in this day and age, there's so many things to do. Every single button is used for something. Hold down a button, press another button, and you get like a little extra menu screen pops up. It's just far too complicated. And from time to time, it's just really nice, or I find it is anyway, to go back to these kind of games and just, you know, just play it how they're meant, I guess. It's just fun. Whereas these days, they're just too overcomplicated. Now, I had to laugh there because I jumped on a horse, and as you would have seen if you were watching it, the horse was moonwalking. I couldn't get off it, and I couldn't figure out how to switch and for the horse to face the opposite direction. Now, I know you can do it because I've done it before, but I don't know what it is. Maybe you double-click on a button or something. There's me talking about complicated controls and how this doesn't have it, and I don't know how to turn around on a horse. But I'm sure it is something simple, I just couldn't remember how to do it. So one of the things I haven't touched upon yet is the music and the audio in general. Now, it is good, it's not spectacular, it's not going to blow you away, it's not going to win any awards. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to let it play for around about 30-60 seconds and just give you a bit of a taster. Yeah, so I think this is a good time to come back in because essentially the music sounds pretty much the same thing to me. I think you might get a slightly different version with a few extra beats in here and there, but ultimately it's the same kind of music, which is a little bit disappointing. It's nice to see a bit of variation as I try and jump on the horse there. But ultimately, as you heard, and then as soon as I get on the bloody horse, jump right off it again. But yeah, a bit of variation in the music would have been nice, but it's not essential because really, you're far too busy concentrating on what's going on, you know, to listen to the music, so it's not that much of a big deal. So when it comes to enemy variation, there is quite a lot, which is nice. You know, there's nothing worse than playing any game and just seeing the same old soldiers who repeatedly come out, you know, to get whacked. It's just a little bit boring. This one offers quite a lot of variation, that's always good to see. Obviously you get your average typical henchman, which you can knock down within maybe 1 or 2 hits. You know, that's fine, that's just kind of a foot soldier. Much like that guy there, you know, he's going to be down with 1 more hit. Then you get the slightly sword man, as he's called there. The slightly tougher guy, but even then I think he just took a couple. You get a tiger, we saw a bad falcon. Who can forget the bad falcon? Or the bad falcon? 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 One of them bloody words I've constantly changed. What is it? Anyway, whatever it's called, it's a bird. And as you just saw there, a mad tiger. Brilliantly named Mad Tiger. You get a mace-wielding lunatic. A waist-mealding. Bit of dyslexia going on there. You get the magician. Now, I don't quite know what the magician does. I didn't let him do it, but I think if you allow him the time, he's kind of about to throw out like a smoke bomb or some kind of poison or something, hence, you know, being a magician. So, levelling up aside, as we see at the end of every level, as I touched upon, as you accumulate points and pick up treasure and all the rest of it, this game doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It is essentially just an old-school Capcom 2D hack-and-slash beat-em-up. But if you like these kind of games, and if you love this genre, you're gonna love this. It's just fun, it's just relaxing, it's the same old thing, it's very repetitive. Like I say, in terms of enemy variation, that's pretty good, but repetitive as in, you're essentially just going across the screen, just hitting people, collecting some energy, using your special move, and wash and repeat, basically. Rinse, wash, repeat. But I love it, I think it's great. Now, in terms of availability, I think I touched upon it at the start, this can be quite hard to get. In PAL regions, I think it is pretty tricky to get box and complete. Every now and again I'll have a look on ebay.co.uk and I never really see it. So it may be, or may not, don't quote me at all on this, but it may be one of them titles which was released, but maybe outside of the UK. Possibly it was just released in like France or Germany, I'm not quite certain on that. Getting a box copy in the US isn't difficult, but it's similarly not that easy, and this cost me around about $25–30 for a box copy. If you want a loose cart, again, you're probably looking at something, what, $10–15 perhaps? But I definitely recommend it, and if you love things like Final Fight or Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, the Teenage Mutant Hero Bloody Turtles, or whatever it is, if you love those kind of games, you're gonna love this, because it's the same thing. It's just old school greatness, and I love it. It's possibly, arguably my favourite genre, you know, the old classic 2D beat 'em up. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting it. If you're not bothered about boxes, then yeah, get the loose cart. It'll just cost you a few quid for a few dollars. Me being me, I've got to get the box. Has to have the box for some reason, I don't know why. It's just OCD and greed. But I think my biggest problem really when it comes, and I've touched upon this before on video, on pickups and talky videos and all that kind of stuff, is I'm really nostalgic when it comes to old games. And when it comes to the Super Nintendo, I had a PAL SNES. So I really, I don't know, I try not to buy American games for the reason that I didn't really have them as a kid. But with that said, a good friend of mine who I still speak to on a pretty regular basis, he used to import games all the time, so I do have that little connection, you know, with American games. So I think that, you know, is helping me buy these games boxed over here, because the box has different designs to, you know, the ones that we had in the UK. Now, I know to some people it shouldn't really matter because people talk about, oh, but the American games, they don't have the borders around the screen. They're faster, you know, 50, 60 megahertz, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't bother me, if I'm honest. The black borders, I couldn't care less. The speed of the game it's only noticeable if you've played an imported version. If all you're used to is the PAL version, then you're not going to know any different. But, yeah, with all that said, I've kind of turned a bit of a blind eye to picking up just PAL games. Obviously with the SNES, I think I've got 4 or 5 box games now. When it comes to the PlayStation 1, I mean, I used to hate the American slim dual cases. I just thought they looked rubbish. Now, I was fully aware, and I'm fully aware that the PAL cases are terrible. But again, in terms of nostalgia, I used to really, and still do like them. But it's only recently I've started to sort of fade out, if you like, the PAL PlayStation 1 games. And I've started to pick up a lot more PlayStation 1 American games, as you may or may not have already seen. So yeah, I don't know what the hell my point is. What is my point? I was wittering about that for. It was a complete waste of time, waste of video time. Oh, man alive. Anyway, so let's talk about the game, or the last 30-odd seconds of the video to talk about the game. Yeah, do I recommend it? Absolutely, I think it's really good. Now, I did touch, obviously, upon the fact that it is relatively, possibly hard to get on the SNES, and if it isn't hard, then you're probably going to be paying a small premium for it. But here's the good news, maybe. It is also available on a compilation called Capcom Collection. Or I think is it Capcom Classics Collection? And I believe it's Volume 2, and it's available on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. So I'm sure you can probably pick that up for maybe a $5, $10, $10, $15, I don't know what it'll be. And obviously it'll come with other games as well, so that might be something worth checking out if you've got a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox. So like I keep saying, you know, these are my favourite kind of games, whether it's Knights of the Round, whether it's Golden Axe, whether it's Rival Turf, whether it's Ninja Warriors, or Shadow Warriors, or Golden Axe, or did I say Golden Axe already? Maybe I'm repeating myself. But these kind of 2D beat-em-ups are great, and they just remind me of a time when gaming was fun. Probably the most fun I've ever had as a gamer, and to play them again all these years later, it's just as fresh and just as special to me. And as much as I do enjoy the current gen stuff, the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, it's almost as if a lot of the fun, the soul, the passion, the point of gaming has kind of been taken away a little bit. But playing things like this really brings it back. and, you know, get the violins out and all the rest of it. But yeah, this is a great era of gaming. And so do I recommend it? 100% yes.